This is Your Life, Season 1, Episode 4. Writing a blog post and then I'll post it, and there's nothing more frustrating than to spend that much time on what you believe is good content and you can't get anybody to read it, or they read it but they don't necessarily share it, or trying to get the word out there. So what would be the next most important thing for platform building? Once you have good content, where then should I spend my next amount of time or energy?
Well, I think you have to understand what the strategic objective is of all this platform building. And I didn't understand this for years. It's painfully obvious when I say it here in a second, but I got really distracted by 1,000 different things. I thought, well, maybe building my Twitter following was the most important, or my Facebook presence was the most important, or creating content that generated a lot of engagement in terms of comments. That was the most important. But that's not really the most important thing. The most important thing you can do as a platform builder, and that really brings us down to this second strategy, which is to use a dedicated list subscription system so that you're building an email list. You've got to build an email list. And when I left Thomas Nelson to go pro, so to speak, to do this full time, I woke up one morning suddenly aware, because I'd heard this thing about, the money is in the list, and that's where you're going to generate or monetize and be able to support yourself financially. And so I realized that I had 2,771 subscribers. This was just 3 years ago. And I went, what was I thinking? Because for the last 7 years, I've been blogging like crazy, and I've had no emphasis on my subscriber list. I had the thing that most bloggers have, which is, get updates, and they put the little, fill in the form box. But as it turns out, that's not that compelling. People are not looking for updates. What they're looking for is solutions to their problems, answers to their questions. They're looking for real value. And so I had to come to terms with the fact that if I was going to turn this into something that was more than a hobby, that was really something that could sustain me and sustain my family, that I was going to have to get really, really serious about my email list. Focus on getting that one thing right.
So, overall, again, for you that are listening, our goal here today is to talk about where you can maximize your limited time to build your platform. And really what you're saying, Michael, is that where we need to spend most of our time is building that email list.
That's right.
And that email list is going to be so critical for you. And Twitter's important, and other social media investments are important. There's other good things. But if you don't have that email list, then you're just always scrapping, trying to grab and reach for more and more followers or things. But that email list is gold for you.
It is. And we were talking about this morning, or I was talking about my frustration with Facebook.
Yes.
And I'd put a post out there, and I was frustrated because Facebook was deciding who was going to see that post. Mm-hmm. Really frustrating, because I've got these people who have opted in to follow me on Facebook, and yet Facebook was deciding, almost like a nanny, who was going to get to see my feed and who wasn't. And, everybody in the social media world is complaining about this. I'm just adding my complaint to it. It's very frustrating. I don't need Facebook to do that for me, and I don't want it to do it for other people either. But when I've got an email list, I don't have anybody gating it or throttling it or putting a governor on it. I can get to everybody with a direct communication, and that's why email is so important. And this is why I advocate, really in my book platform, why you need a home base, which is your blog, where you're going to capture these email addresses.
Yes.
All this other stuff out there, Twitter and Facebook and all that, think of that as an embassy. You're going to have a presence there, but you always want to refer people back to your blog, which is where you're going to capture the email addresses.
And as long as we are in this kind of always changing, always morphing social media world, we're always going to be at the mercy of these other applications, because it's property we're renting in a sense, right? They own it. So we're always at the mercy of the landlord. When it comes to our email list, our blog, that's our home. We own that. That's ours. And so that's where we have the control. So we can spend a lot of time being frustrated about these places where we're renting and how they don't play by the rules we want them to play by, or we can just focus on what we own, which is what you're suggesting today, and that we need to spend more time focusing on our email list than necessarily all the other things we're doing.
And also to just say,